Hey everyone, and welcome once again to At the Table, the show that asks you to pick up a chair, pull out your Paizo materials or whatever your tabletop role-playing game books are, and join us at the table. Before we get into what we're going to discuss today, first a quick introduction if you don't know us yet already. Mr. Michael Powell, please tell us who you are and where we can find you on that sweet, sweet internet.
Hi, everybody. I am Michael Powell, aka Mr. Kapow, which is my social media handle. That's MRKAPAO. And what about you, PJ?
Oh, and my name is PJ McGaw. You can find me everywhere at pj.mcgaw, including Instagram and this very station here. So that's who we are. And we're going to be talking today about something I'm very, very excited about. First, I want to do a quick shout out to all the chat. I've been seeing you, been talking with you guys. Do a quick little shout out to Malice1974, who said, "Have you folks seen?" That's not an impression of your voice. That's just me cracking my own voice on accident. Have you folks seen or playtest the Magus and Summoner? They look interesting. Well, funny you should say that, Malice, because the coffee's kicking in, and I'm ripe on the hype train. And I'm excited today because we are going to be talking about the playtest materials for Secrets of Magic. And today we're going to be covering the Magus. I'm so excited because the Magus has been one of my favorite classes in Pathfinder since Pathfinder First Edition. It is a fun and rewarding and great marriage of two completely different skills and a little new baby that's entirely its own thing in a third skill. And yeah, so if you like Pathfinder First Edition and love the Magus of Pathfinder First Edition, we're going to have a fun deep dive on that and maybe even talk about some other things.
Really quick, I just want to say this. Can I say something really quick?
Yeah.
You know what I find really interesting? This is one of those things that you and me are kind of split on. You're really excited about the Magus. I'm actually really excited about the Summoner, which is the other class.
Yeah, and the Summoner is really cool. And what I think is funny about the Summoner is that, like, in Pathfinder First Edition, it was okay. You know, it was a very heavy class that required a ton of, like, you know,
upkeep.
like, hey,
upkeep.
Yeah. The Summoner's kind of like looking at the players and said, hey, do you like being middle management for a Domino's franchise? Don't worry, you're a Summoner. You know what I mean?
I play an investigator in your game, so we all know how well I like middle management.
So what I'm hearing is you own 3 chains of McDonald's. Excellent. Okay.
Oh, that Mickey D money.
Oh, but for real though.
But really quick, I also add that right now the Secrets of Magic playtest is going on until October 16th. So, which means until October 16th, you could send all your comments and your thoughts and everything to Paizo when it comes to these two classes, as well as the release for Pathfinder's Secret of Magics is going to be released on July of 2021, which is next year. So we got a while.
We got a while, but that's great because that tells me that they are going to include so much more than just a Magus and a Summoner. Not that those aren't enough. Those are amazing. But the fact that we're going to wait so long means it's going to be a nice, hefty book. Kind of like the Advanced Player's Guide was, which is so tasty.
It's going to be their next... I think that's going to be like, Advanced Player's Guide was their big additional expansion book. I think this is going to be the next big additional expansion book on the core rules.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're going to pad up a lot of their magic, because they gave you some new spells in Advanced Player's Guide, not too much, but it's called the Secrets of Magic. We're going to get 2 magical classes, a whole new slew of familiars. I'm just guessing. Mm-hmm. This is all speculation, and new spells. And it's just going to be an awesome compendium to pick up.
Well, you know what? Let's jump right in.
Absolutely.
Before we go in, actually. I'm sorry, but I know you read a little bit about it. I read a little about it. What's your thoughts before we go in on this dive on the Magus?
Oh, that's a good question. So, like I said, I've always loved the Magus' ability. So imagine you're a fighter, right? And you're like, man, I love hitting with my sword. I hit with sword very well. But eventually you're like, man, hitting with sword gets boring. I want some more flash. I want something more spectacular that's not
you want some bells and whistles.
Exactly. Man, I want what the wizard has. Normally you have to multi-class, and so and in past editions, multi-classing a melee and a magical class is like trying to get like oil and water to play well with fire. It's a nasty combination that's way too much effort, and you just get burned. But now you have this beautiful marriage, and if you've played Final Fantasy, I feel like this is like a red mage, the best of everything. I don't know yet, and maybe we'll see something later in the future, but I don't know yet if they can cast heal spells. But for sure, they're doing good damage with magic and blades.
Yeah. For me, the Magus is kind of like the Warlock Hexblade or the Bladesinger from Dungeons and Dragons. That's the best way I could describe it when I was reading through it.
Yeah. Oh, and before I forget, this is a little off topic. I'm going to say this really quick and go back on topic. I've just been informed by Sydney of Hightower. We got a note on, I think, Monday that Twitch is going to be doing random ads for different people. So if you're watching us in the chat, we just want to give you a heads up and an apology that Twitch is going to be running random ads and interrupting the stream. If you need anything repeated, please let us know. And also, please tell us in the chat when you got the ad so we can just kind of take mental notes of how potentially disruptive or beneficial this system may or may not be. So I got my first note here.
Also, if you want to see this all kind of uncut, check out our YouTube channel, where we're going to be posting where we've been posting all these videos.
Yes, as also a great thing. Please look up Nat20 Productions on YouTube. On Nat20 Productions, all one word. You'll see our logo. There's a few out there that try to copy us. Sorry about that. But you'll find it. Or you can just type in Edge of Legend and find us there as well. Yeah, let us know how you like the YouTubes, or how you hate or like the ads. But moving right along, let's go back to the topic. Magus. I know I compared it to a red mage. How do you feel about, what are your thoughts on the Magus?
Well, like I said before, it's, for me, as a tabletop gamer, the best way I could describe them are the Hexblade Warlock or the Bladesinger Elf from D&D.
Okay. I could see that, because they both kind of incorporate, making a mental note here, because they both incorporate physical martial prowess and magical spells. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Magus, what's really cool about them is not only can they cast a spell like Fireball, and not only can they use a saber, a rapier, a broadsword, whatever, but they can do some other cool things, and I think we're going to get to that in the character talk. So Michael, do you like? Well, let me give you something a little less loaded. When we were going over this class, were you excited? Were you like, this is fun, this is cool, or like, this is too heady, this is too much management? Like, what's your thought?
Can I actually save that question till the end of the Magus discussion? Because I think that's better saved till then.
A good idea. Well, without further ado then, why don't we just get right in this bad boy? So we've been kind of dancing around the Magus, how cool it is, how fun it is. Let's talk about what they can do. So off the bat, you have a Constitution of 8. I'm sorry, an HP of 8 plus Constitution modifier. So you're going to be probably comparable to like rogues and clerics.
Yeah.
Your key ability, strength or dexterity, this is mostly going to be your weapon.
Which I'm actually really surprised about, because usually a spellcaster race is kind of like your intelligence, your wisdom, or charisma.
Yeah, and because they are, and this is important, as we'll get to, they are arcane casters. So this class may be a little mad or multi-attribute dependent. Wow. Multi-attribute dependent, which means strength or dex may be your key thing, but you may also have to have a high intelligence for spellcasting. We'll find out as we continue to read.
Yeah, the key ability and the hit points, I don't get me wrong, I do understand it. It's a balancing issue. It's also a perfect example of, they're kind of a 70% martial class and a 30% spellcaster class.
Which I think is probably a good marriage, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we go on. So going with the training and expertise, if you will, you are trained in perception, which Thank God. Thank God Paizo made everyone some level of trained in perception instead of like other games where you have to fight and scrape just to get perception because you know your GM is going to be like, roll a perception check, roll a perception check. Saving throws, expert in fortitude, trained in reflex, expert in will. This is interesting because you have a similar save pattern to all the tanks. The champions, the barbarians, the fighters, the exact same thing. So that's kind of an interesting thing for a spellcaster. You want to talk about these skills, Mr. Michael Powell?
The skills are they're trained in Arcana, skilled in a number of additional skills equal to 2 plus their intelligence modifier. So they don't really have that many skills, but hey, they got some skills. Also want to point out their initial proficiencies. Never mind. Actually, no, their attacks. Actually, they're trained in simple weapons, trained in martial weapons, and trained in unarmed attacks. Which
I want to. I was gonna say I want to put a big button on that trained in unarmed attacks for now. Big fat red button because I'm gonna punch that button with great excitement. Come later, but moving right along. Oh, it's so much fun.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that.
Sorry, I'm getting power hungry. So defenses. You're trained in light, medium, and unarmored defense. This is actually pretty gracious. Most casters get about unarmed and light. So the heaviest you're going to be wearing, probably some variation of like studded reinforced leather or light chainmail, but trust me, you don't want that move penalty, that -5 move penalty holding you back. You are going to be very mobile with this class.
You're gonna definitely be fighting a lot like a rogue. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of interesting choices for tactics, which we'll get to later. Spells. You're trained in them. Arcane spell attacks and arcane spell DCs. So now this is something. If you're watching this, I'm going to definitely make this part of my notes too, Paizo. I have to have confirmation. You are trained in spell DCs. That makes perfect sense. But your stat is based on either strength or dexterity. Now, this worries me because while, yes, I love Streamline, this kind of makes me feel like you're now a muscle wizard. Is your strength the DC basis for your Arcana spells? What?
I think, like I said before, they're 70%. They're 70% martial, 30% spellcaster. I believe they're still. I think intelligence is still their. I believe their spell DC or whatever is one of the traditional stats, but like I said, they're not. Keep in mind, they're not really spellcasters. They use spells as a utility instead of their main attack.
Yeah, it's like they're a steak with magical salt. You just kind of sprinkle the fireball on. You don't put the fireball directly into the steak. So without further ado, now that we've talked about our salty steak, let's jump into this monster.
The class features.
The class features. Level 1. I'm gonna preface this right now. Level 1 is gonna be the massive crux of everything you're gonna get with the features. So let's break this down really quickly on the boring stuff. Ancestry and background. Initial proficiencies we already went over. Arcane spell casting. Almost said classing. At first level, you can prepare 1 first level spell and 5 cantrips. You'll notice in the Magus spell per day table, if you look at the playtest, you have 5 cantrips for your entire 20 level build. Now, most classes only get 5 cantrips towards the end of their character path. You start with 5, and you don't get any more.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Also, because you're probably going to be... Well, yeah, we'll get to that later.
Can I just also say that for both the Magus and the Summoner, they kind of use a new interesting type of spell slot system. Yeah, because you know what? I'll let you. Do you want to take this, PJ, or should I keep going on?
Oh yeah. Let's describe what it says in the arcane spellcasting a little more, and I think we can kind of build on that together.
Yeah.
So it says here, it's basic spell slot stuff. Prepare spells remain available to you until you cast them, or until you prepare your spells again. The number of spells you can prepare is your spell slots, and they increase as you level as a Magus. Get in the chat. How do we pronounce this? Magus or Magus? Because we're going back and forth. So let's see here. Your number of spell slots at the highest level of spell slots you can cast from a spell slot increases in the table. Some of your spells require you to attempt a spell attack, blah, blah, blah. DCs, already mentioned that. So, Michael, let's start talking about this very cool and very weird spell table.
All right. First of all, the interesting thing here about the spell slots for the Magus and also the Summoner is you don't really get more spell slots as you level up. The spell slots you get you pretty much just get 4 spell slots, really. 4 spell slots, and as you level up, I believe past 4, you lose your lower level, access to your lower level spells, which means you lose your ability to access like a level 1 spell, but you still do keep the spell because these spells you can still cast them, but they're heightened spells now.
Yeah, Michael is very, very right. I don't know if I can show you this if you look him up. I have to look at this on my phone because I can't show it to you on my computer. I'm sure as heck not screen sharing. This is and that's the Magus there. You can see on the screen in the middle. He's a very awesome, edgy boy. So this is the table for the Magus. You see how it kind of descends downward like that? You're not going to get more than 2 spells per spell recharge, basically. Mm-hmm. But what's fascinating is that these 2 spells that you have are going to be at the highest level that you can cast them at. And as you saw, as early as level 17, you're getting straight up 2 9th level spells a day. And that can be either a 9th level, junctioning of a 3rd level fireball. So think about that for a minute. Or it could be something like, I think Wish is now a 10th level spell, but still a very, very powerful 9th level spell. Now you might be saying, well, PJ, that's all fine and dandy, but I only get 2 9th level spells a day and I get nothing else. Yes, however, you still get 5 cantrips to choose from, and cantrips in this edition are automatically heightened, depending on, of course, half your level rounded up.
Yep.
And that's where the spice comes in, and we'll get to that in just a second. Let's skip heightened spells and cantrips because we just talked about it. I do really want to quickly go into Spellbook here for one reason and one reason only. Cantrips are heightened? That's right, Reap Psyche. Cantrips are heightened automatically. When you get the cantrip spell, they'll tell you in the spell description what the heightened effect of that cantrip is, if there is any at all. And it's automatically heightened half of your level rounded up. So honestly, at level 17...
I consider cantrips these days to be like what level 1 spells used to be.
Especially in Pathfinder First Edition. Yeah, some of the spells would be like 1d6 or 1d8, and cantrips back then at best were 1d3.
1d4, I think.
1d4? Yeah. I think was it, I want to say...
I don't think they made a 1d3 dice.
Oh, they didn't. You had to roll a d6 and then argue over how to divide it. It was a dumb... 1d3s are dumb, and I'm so glad we got rid of them. So, now here's what I love about the Spellbook. Just the flavor. This is just delicious character development and choice, because it's the standard spell book you get in every other tabletop role-playing game. Basically, it's a book worth however much money, which you receive for free and must study to prepare your spells each day. The spell contains your choice of basically it contains everything you know. Yeah. This is where you're preparing your spells from. But what's cool about this is that they want you now to put character into that book. It says it might be anything from a sturdy book with a secure latch entitled Feats on the Stratagems of Supernatural Warfare to a tattered pamphlet with your name scrawled on the cover. And what I love about this is that it now paints you this picture of your type of wizard. Do you have like this big ornate tome the size of a
encyclopedia?
And see, like an encyclopedia or a buckler, or do you have just some like ramshot loose leaf piece of paper written in crayon? You could be a crayon wizard.
Dude,
I love it.
honestly, if I was a Magus, this would be probably my spell book with like pages already ripped out. Like, oh, I don't need that.
Looks like we
Whatever.
dropped everything for a bit. I lost the Twitch for a bit. Sorry about that. Yeah, I love that idea. In fact, if we ever do make a school campaign, because school campaigns seem to be very popular, you could have a Magus or like a wizard who's got their notebook, line notebook, going, okay, I got a spell for this. Hold on. Oh god, those are my PE notes. Now, last but not least, growth for your spells. Each time you gain a level, you add 2 more arcane spells to your spellbook of any level of a spell that you can cast. So go back to the chart, make sure you can cast at that level. Boom, you learn 2 spells at that level. You can use the Arcana skill, and now this is fun. You can use your Arcana skill to add other spells that you find on your adventures. Now, some games and some GMs are kind of all over the place with this rule. Some games said that certain spellcasting classes can only learn the spells that they learn when they level up. But the one fun thing about Magus is that they've always put into the flavor, your hunt for knowledge is equal to your hunger for power. So your ability to increase your spell list is infinite when it comes to spells known. So if you're out in the wild and you find an evil wizard and you kill said wizard and you see his Tome of Spells, his Tome of Spells, you can learn every spell in his spell book you don't already have, and then your knowledge base just grows.
Once
more
again,
and more.
that's why having a notebook as your spell book would work very well.
Honestly, you're not wrong. Yeah. Just devoured that magic.
Let's talk
If you have a
about
spell-
battle spells.
Yes, now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes. Why don't you start off with battle spells?
Well, okay. For battle spells, you learn the Magus Potency's battle spell, and the battle spells are Magus-specific spells created for combat. They're a type of focus spells that cost 1 focus points to cast a focus spell, and you start with a focus pool of 1 focus point. You refill your focus pool during your daily preparations, and you can regain 1 focus point by spending 10 minutes during the refocus activity to study your spellbook. Focus spells are automatically heightened to half your level rounded up. Focus spells don't require spell slots, nor can you cast them using spell slots. Taking feats can give you more focus spells and increase the size of your focus pool, though your focus pool can never hold more than 3 focus points. Which means, yeah, your battle spells are pretty much your focus spells. And they use your intelligence modifier.
Yep, pretty much. And those focus abilities or those focus spells work just like cantrips, but they're also a bit spicier. So now, next up comes the big feature, my favorite feature of the class. And I'm sure if anyone in the chat is a fan of Pathfinder First Edition, you're going to look forward to this feature too.
It's some meat and potatoes.
That's right. The striking spell, or as it was called in Pathfinder First Edition, the Spell Strike. This is cool. So first of all, to do this fun ability, it requires 3 things. They even break down the process in steps of 3. First things first, you have a free action ability that you get for free called Striking Spell. Here's the gist of it. Hey, I have this weapon. Hey, I have this fireball spell. Fireball sword. So you free action make fireball sword. Now, once that happens, you roll to attack with the sword physically. Now, what that physical hit does affects the spell, because as you hit them with your sword, let's say the sword with fireball in it, the fireball erupts off the spell strike. You cut them with the blade, and fireball bursts into the wounds. It's so much fun. And you combine the damage of both your sword strike and the spell at the same time. Sorry, Michael, I didn't want to take up all the stuff.
Oh, no worries. Well, I think PJ said it best. A spell strike is, I believe, I also believe that you still take your standard multiple attack penalty when you use striking spell, right?
You don't. You only take the multiple attack penalty after you do Spell Strike.
Ah.
Now this is how it's written. If you hit with a melee strike using the receptacle for the spell, being your weapon, the spell is discharged, affecting only the target you hit. The spell still requires its normal spell attack roll or saving throw, but you don't increase your multiple attack penalty until after attempting both the discharging strike and the spell attack roll. If your discharging strike was a critical success, now this is fun. So if your melee strike was a crit success, the degree of success is one better than you rolled for the spell attack roll. So you're going to have to roll both the sword and the spell. This is a little different from Pathfinder 1st Edition, where at least most house rules was the blade roll was the automatic spell trigger. So you just roll once. This time you have to roll twice, and I can see why it was absolutely broken in 1st Edition. So the success is better than when you roll for the spell attack roll, or one worse than the target rolls for a saving throw. So say you are doing Sleep Strike, as weird as it sounds. You put a sleep spell into your sword, you hit them. You hit them and you cause them to fall asleep right after. So if you crit, now not only do you hit them and it hurts, but now they have to make a will save against your spell DC to be put to sleep. Now, since you crit the Blade Strike, no matter what they do on that spell save, it's going to be one rank lower. Now, if you don't expend the spell it's stored with a strike before the end of your next turn, it is lost and dissipates harmlessly, and you lose the spell slot. The same thing happens if you take the striking spell action again, or if the weapon is used for a non-melee strike, such as a thrown weapon strike. A spell stored with striking spell cannot be discharged by anyone but the caster.
Yeah.
So don't buff the barbarian. Lord knows the barbarian don't need it.
Yeah, it pretty much means you can't enchant another character's weapon and then expect the store spell to go off. You yourself has to use the weapon.
Yeah. Now, you could probably still get a buff spell, like the magic weapon spell, and buff the barbarian that way. That's a different story.
Yeah, but you can't do barbarian, I'm going to store fireball in your great axe and expect that fireball to go off when they hit him.
God, a 9th level fireball in a barbarian's axe. That makes me angry.
That would be insane. That would be insane. I mean, there's
It's
archetypes. You can archetype it.
You could definitely multi-class. Oh, God, you could multi-class the barbarian Magus. So, chat, listen. If you want to ruin any game, multi-class barbarian Magus and destroy everything, just ruin it.
Oh, speaking of which, for archetyping, let's see, a Magus would actually be absolutely sick with the monk.
I love that you said that, because that is my big red button, and I'm going to Macho Man Randy Savage elbow drop that button.
Let's go into Magus Synthesis right now. Each Magus uses striking spell to blend magic with their preferred fighting style and weapon. This particular combination of styles is your Magus Synthesis. The Syntheses?
Hold on, let me look at it.
Yeah, Syntheses?
Synthesis.
No, the multiple.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the Syntheses presented in this book are as follows. Well, I know our Ranger Chonobus on Edge of Legends, if she decides to do another archetype or something, Shooting Star would be right up her alley. The typical Magus must retain a physical connection to their weapon to discharge a striking spell, but you can extend your magic further to use ranged weapons. You can place a spell in a ranged or thrown weapon when using striking spell and discharge the spell if you hit with a ranged strike. If the weapon uses ammunition, the magic is delivered through the ammunition. The spell has its effect on a hit only if the target is in range of the stored spell. For instance, if you hit with a ranged attack at 30 feet, you could trigger the store spell if it had the range of 30 feet, but not if it had a range of 15 feet or touch.
Basically, Shooting Star is like saying, hey, do you want to be an Eldritch Archer, but not be an Eldritch Archer?
Yeah.
Boom. There you go. Because the 15 feet or touch is mostly there to say, my focus is going to be bow and arrows, not throwing daggers, and not swords. So Shooting Star is great if you want to be a Magus at range, which is important to say, because in Pathfinder 1st Edition, this was rare. They had to really, really hit home that only melee strikes could do it. Now they're saying, nah, range 2. Why don't you tell us about... Oh,
actually,
yes,
I really want to keep on a shooting star just for a second, because I just want to explain. Say you can hit with a bow at 60 feet, but your spell has a range of 30 feet. That means if you shoot your arrow 60 feet, once it gets past the 30 feet mark, the spell just kind of fizzles out. It has to be within that 30 feet spell range.
That is actually an amazing thing to note that Michael Powell said. Yeah, once you get past 30 feet of range, your hit is no longer imbued with the spell. So if you are playing this class or archetyping however you want, keep in mind your range. Just like being a ranged rogue getting sneak attack, general rule of thumb is that sneak attack cannot be done beyond 30 feet. So 30 is the magic number there.
But yeah, but if the spell says, hey, the spell can go 60 feet, then it's okay.
Yeah, I would say talk to your GM about that.
Well, not really talk. It's actually written in the spell itself. The range of the spell as originally described.
The spell has its effect on a hit. For instance, if you get the range attack at 30 feet. I don't know. I think if the spell has a range of 60 feet, but you're shooting it... Oh, you mean just cast a spell as opposed to shoot it from your bow and arrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
totally.
It has to have the range of whatever the spell descriptor is.
Yeah. Moving right along, Michael Powell, why don't you continue with slide casting?
Oh, slide casting. You capture a portion of your spell's magic to forcefully propel yourself while storing a spell. Each Magus chooses how they do this, such as propelling themselves with telekinesis or filling their body with magical speed. After you use a striking spell and start casting a spell that takes one action or more to cast, you can stride or step as part of that cast a spell activity. You choose whether to move before or after the other parts of the casting spell. Disrupting this movement doesn't disrupt the spell, and disrupting the spell doesn't disrupt the movement. You can stride or step only if you're storing your spell in a one-handed weapon or your body, and only if you have the other hand free. So this one is kind of, if you're playing your Magus, kind of like a duelist type character, somebody who uses like a weapon in one hand and their other hand's kind of free. Kind of like, honestly, kind of like a swashbuckler.
Now, I love this, and this is why I say, you don't want to ruin yourself with wearing heavy armor because you're going to lose mobility. This is important because when you make a stride or a step, you're only moving your speed. If you are, let's say, a dwarf who has a normal speed of 20, you're wearing heavy armor or medium armor, you now only have 15 feet to move. That's almost half what everyone else gets. But what's cool about this is that to put your spell into a blade and then attack with the blade, and the spell, that is almost all 3 actions of one turn. In fact, that is indeed all 3 actions of one turn. It's 1 to strike with your melee and 2 to cast the spell. The putting the spell into the sword, freebie. So what's awesome about this is that now you can store a spell, you can strike, and you can still move your full turn or full movement in one action. So now you literally have no weaknesses in your tactical abilities, but you have to choose slide casting in order to get this. And this is very, very good for something else, which I will elbow drop a little bit later.
Yeah, this is definitely something you want to take if you want to make a Magus who's really into the whole mobility thing. You want to be able to move around the battlefield.
Yeah, I like what Malice said. Nightcrawler Banff, absolutely.
Pretty much.
In my brain... No, I'll save that. So, sustaining spell. Michael, keep going with the sustaining spell stuff.
Oh, sustaining steel, you mean?
Oh, thank you for the correction. Sustaining steel.
This is for characters who want to go with that two-handed weapon, that beefy boy. The clamor and carnage of battle calls to you. The process of channeling your arcane power into large and dangerous weapons fills your body with extra vitality. If you use striking spell to store a spell in a two-handed weapon, when you finish casting a spell, you gain temporary hit points equal to twice the spell's level. If you use a spell slot or its level if your spell didn't use a spell slot, such as a cantrip or focus spell, these temporary HP last until the end of your turn.
So this is really great if you want to play a Magus like you would play a fighter or barbarian. Now, obviously, your AC is just not going to be there, but that's fine. You still have a D8 plus Constitution modifier, and now almost every round, until you run out of spells or want to use a cantrip, which is free, you're getting temporary HP to make up for the lack of armor and damage resistance. So you're magically tanky. You're a little squishy on the HP, but you're magically tanky.
As Mal said, that's for your barbarian multi-class. Yeah. This is definitely something you want to have if you want that cushion of HP. You want to be that tank.
Yeah, so you want to be like, I hate that I'm about to say this, but let's say you want to be a Jedi tank. You can be a Jedi tank with the Magus or Magus. Your lightsaber, if you will, two-handed sword. You're doing these really cool cuts and twirls. You're putting a cantrip in there, and the minute someone hits you, it's like, no, you didn't. Ow, a little bit, but no, you didn't.
All right, now let's go to their other features. Honestly, it's kind of lackluster after your first level, I gotta say.
Yeah, not gonna lie. Like I said, the first level is very heavy. You get all those cool things we talked about at first level, and everything else from here on out as features, not feats, as features, is very, very standard stuff.
Yeah.
Like almost everyone else gets this stuff.
Yeah, you know what, PJ? Let's just go. Honestly, we could go through this really quick. So, take it away.
Okay, so Magus Feats. At second level and every even number level thereafter, you get a Magus Feat. Those are awesome. Talk about them after this. After that, skill feats. Second level and every 2 levels thereafter, get a skill feat. General feats. At third level and every 4 after, you get a general feat. Pretty simple. Skill increase. At third level and every 2 levels thereafter, you gain a skill increase. Now that's actually pretty cool because that's pretty stacked. That's a lot of skill increases.
You gotta be picky though, because you have a limited number of skill pool to choose from.
That's very true. You do have a limited skill pool, which having a high intelligence would help. At 7th level, you can use skill increases to become a master in a skill. At 15th, you can become legendary. Ability boosts, 5th level, every 5 after. Ancestry feats from your ancestry, just like every other ancestry gets. Lightning reflexes, you are now an expert in reflex. Reflex saves. Weapon expertise, because you just weren't hitting hard enough.
Yeah.
Let's see here. You get expert in weapons you're already proficient with. Weapon specialization, you get a +2 additional damage, and that increases to a 3 if you're master and 4 if you're legendary in those weapon training. Alertness makes you, your perception training goes to expert. Resolve, will increases to master, and when you make a will save, you get a crit success instead of a normal success. Expert spellcaster, your spells are hard to resist. Your DC for being a Magus is now an expert, which is pretty awesome at level 11. It's pretty early. Medium armor expertise, all your armor training is now expert at 11th level. Weapon mastery at 13 makes you a master of your weapons. Greater weapon specialization, this is fun. Instead of doing 2, 3, 4, you now do 4, 6, or 8 bonus damage, depending on your training. Juggernauts. Proficiency with Fortitude is Master, and when you make a Fortitude save, you get critical instead of a regular success, which is pretty common for most martial classes. And now at 19, this is where things get interesting. Sure, you get Master Spellcaster. Your DC is now considered Master Proficiency. But now, you get the capstone.
Don't forget,
you want to talk about this, Michael?
At level 17, I was going to say, at level 17, you get Medium Armor Mastery.
Oh, all right. I thought I said that. So everything you're trained in armor-wise is now Master. But, Michael, bring it home with Double Spell Strike, the final capstone feature of the Magus.
All right. Double Spell Strike is what you get at 19. It's your class cap ability. You can extend the magic of your spells you store with Striking Spell. The first time you discharge a spell with Striking Spell, you retain an echo of the spell, keeping it stored in your body or weapon. You get the full effects of discharging it, but the spell remains stored in a weapon and can be used once more. If you hit a second time while the spell is still stored, you can discharge the spell again, fully expending it this time. This second effect is somewhat weaker than original. You use a degree of success 1 worse than you rolled for a spell attack roll, or the target uses a degree of success 1 better than the result of their saving throw. If the strike is a critical hit, the spell has its normal effects based on the result of the spell attack roll or saving throw, rather than an increased effect.
Yeah. So really fast, because I'm this close to hitting my big red button with my elbow drop. But I do want to say what makes double spell strike and the spell strike ability and everything so important is that you're going to be relying for this ability on your cantrips. You get 2 spells a day, and that may not be spicy enough for you. That may be kind of lame. But you have to consider the fact that you get 5 cantrips. There's a ton of attack cantrips. And you're adding the damage of a, let's see, a 19th level. You know, half of 19 rounded up is 8, 9. So you're adding like a cantrip at 9th level, give or take, to your blade attack. And now you can do that twice before losing the ability. So, and when you, well, I think whatever the point I was going to make has gone in my own brain. I lost my point. But yeah, we're going back to mentioning earlier about why cantrips are going to want to lean on so heavily, not only for being a potential tank, but this double strike ability. Because if you put 2 of your daily spells into your blade, you're tapped, you're done. But if you put 2 cantrips into your sword, you don't run out of spells, and you still do stupid amounts of damage. But before we continue, I do want to hit my red button now.
Oh, actually, hold up. Sorry, hold up on that red button.
Oh, okay.
Add one more thing to the double spell strike.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to be honest, and I kind of have to be honest on my end, compared to a lot of the other capstones of the other classes, this is honestly kind of disappointing. It's a little vanilla for me, you know. Honestly, it's a little vanilla, and much like the investigator playtest, I feel that this class is going to change the most from the playtest version to the finalized version.
I think I see what you're saying, what you're getting at. Now, I do agree that if you're going to make level 19 bigger, better, I'm all for it.
Flash.
And yeah, I would not mind this being a little more exciting. However, what's cool about this is that in order to spell strike, that takes all 3 actions of your turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that can be augmented with the sliding spell ability, which allows you to move as you cast, so you can kind of compensate, but only a little bit. Double spell strike is great because once you have the 2 spells stored, by the way, that is a free action on your first round. You can then use your second round to strike again, and I believe that takes away one of the actions, and one of the action costs, like the cost of casting the spell, so you can still move and attack and cast a spell off the weapon. So I believe it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't sound that great if I'm reading this correctly, and I may be wrong. The first round's going to be loaded. Second round, you're going to have options, but you have to use the spell. You know, does that sound true to you? 'Cause that's kind of what it sounds like to me.
Well, honestly, like I said, it sounds to me the second time you use it to expand the double, I guess the double strike attack, the double spell strike attack. It's honestly, like I said, it just you're able to do one thing one more time.
True, and that may be a little less exciting, but at
Yeah.
least the cool thing is that you don't have to lose your economy so much, if I'm reading this correctly.
And also, it's like 1 level lower than it would be. Like I said before, I honestly think this class is going to be it's going to change drastically in the finalized version. And probably the finalized version is going to be a lot more flashier with more bells and whistles, I think.
Probably, and I wouldn't mind that.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the one level lower, that's just in response to their success or your success.
Yeah.
So, like, if you roll a spell and they have to save, instead of their critical failure, it's now going to be a regular failure. And instead of their success, it would be a critical success. But the effect of that spell at that save or failure chart would still take into effect. Now, I want to hit my big red button. Is there anything else you want to say about these?
Go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
So this is in conjecture to the very first Magus first level feat. I'm going to read the feat, and I'm going to hit my big red button off the top rope. Oh, yeah. So, first level, Arcane Fists. You value physical perfection as much as mental. The damage die for your fist increases to a D6 instead of a D4. Most people take a -2 penalty, which you don't, because now your strikes are lethal and non-lethal. You don't take this penalty when making lethal attacks with your fists or any other unarmed attacks. You gain the critical specialization effects of unarmed attacks in the brawling group and weapons of the brawling group. Red button elbow drop. You can now be a Magus monk. Now, if you want to start multi-classing into monk deeply, you can do that, but off the bat, first level feat, you're already mostly a monk with spells. This is dope. When I was doing Pathfinder First Edition, I had this ally NPC whose name was Reich's Sirius Atlantic, and if you get the reference, 10 points. And at the time, I had to do some really awful gestalt to make that work. This gives it to you at first level. Red button, you do Arcane Fists, you add the sliding scale spell. Now you're Goku.
Pretty much. Like, honestly, the only reason to go into either monk archetype or even martial artist archetype would be for the stances.
Mm-hmm. Your stance revolution on. Mm-hmm. But, like, what I love about this is that now you are, like, running in for this giant haymaker punch, and as you punch them, boom, fireball comes off the fist. You can have your Dragon Ball moments as much as you want. And what's cool with the sliding scale spell ability is that you have to describe how you're moving. I think if we're all fans of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, we remember when Goku killed Piccolo in Dragon Ball, he charged up a Kamehameha to shoot himself at Piccolo and then turn himself into a missile, went through Piccolo. You can easily say, like, yeah, I charge up my ki or my magic and I dash forward, like, magically, or I propel myself with a blue force beam. You know,
or if you're a comic book nerd, you're basically turning yourself into Cannonball.
Yes. Oh, my God. Guthrie. How could I forget Mr. Guthrie? I was going to say maybe North Star, but definitely Cannonball. Absolutely. Also, Maynard for the win. Great to see you. I'm so glad you perked up when I mentioned Reich Sirius Atlantic. He was in that game years ago in DC. So that's my big red button. I love Arcane Fists. I love Magus Arcane Fist with sliding spell. I think that's super exciting.
Honestly, if you want to make a magic monk, I would actually suggest don't go with monk. Just go with Magus and take Arcane Fist.
Yeah, I have to double check because I think they've altered how Flurry of Blows works. So you might as well just take this.
Yeah. But anyway, our next level 1 feat is called Combat Assessment. It's a 1 action ability. You make a telegraph attack to learn about your foe. Make a melee strike. On a hit, you can immediately attempt a check to recall knowledge about the target. On a critical hit, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to the check to recall knowledge. The target is temporarily immune to combat assessment for 1 day. It's kind of like a nerf version of an investigator's ability. Honestly,
it's exactly what that is. It's not very strong. This is mostly something you want to do if you don't know what you're fighting.
I just realized something.
What's that?
It's like that meme, the Dragon Ball meme. Over 9,000. You got a built-in scouter.
Oh God! Please, Paizo, make the Magus every Dragon Ball meme come to life. So yeah, combat assessment. If you want to learn what you're fighting as you're fighting it, that's the only thing I can see. Right now, I'm already a fan of Arcane Fists more. Eschew materials. If you've ever played any other tabletop role-playing game with this feat, usually it's built into the class like a sorcerer. It's interesting that they put this in as a feat. Bottom line, if you're casting a spell that requires material components, like here's a pearl of power, or no, that's a magical item. Here's a pearl. Here's a seashell. You no longer need that. There is a cool flavor, though, that you have to have a hand free to draw a sigil in midair as you're fighting. I love that aesthetic. However, I do not feel that this should be a feat. I feel that this should be built into the class since it's so cool and so basic.
Yeah, I kind of want to say, you know what? I would actually keep using, spell components for spells as a Magus, because it just had this really cool image in my mind where maybe your Magus kind of take the powder or whatever, make it into oil or like liquid. So when he casts a spell, he drinks from a bottle and then kind of spits it on his blade, and that's how he kind of uses the spell components.
I'm not gonna lie, I do like that. I like that flavor. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can just make that part of like the role play of casting the spell.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of casting the sigil, you magically summon the spell in your mouth and you spit it on the blade. You know, you kind of get two for one there.
Yeah, like Maynard said, it's mostly flavorful, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal if it was homebrewed in. Honestly, at my table, I would just homebrew it in.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know too many DMs that are really, or GMs, I should say, that are big sticklers for material components. If you're playing with a GM that is, then you have to really love inventory mitigation.
Yeah. It's for those grimdark games.
Yeah, which can be fun, but I feel like sometimes they take you out of what's really exciting, which is casting the spell. Mm-hmm. Anyway, moving right along. Familiar. You get a familiar. Moving right along.
Familiar can be useful. I just want to say, familiars can be really useful.
Yes, not to downplay familiars. They're awesome in Pathfinder. Absolutely. And also, you become like a very, very small version of a summoner, which, considering how time is, we may talk more about how cool summoner eidolons are and summoners themselves in a deep dive next episode. So you get a familiar that you can kind of customize to a degree. I don't want to sell that short. It's just very self-explanatory. You get a familiar.
Next up is... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Michael Powell, please tell us Raise a Tome.
All right, Raise a Tome is a level 1 feat. I believe it's 1 action. Requirements, you're holding a book. You raise up the book you're holding and flip it open to defend yourself and expedite your studies. The book remains raised until the start of your next turn. While you have a book raised, you gain a +1 circumstance bonus to AC and to recall knowledge on a subject relevant to the book, such as arcane magic if you're using your spellbook. If you're a master in the skill you're using to recall knowledge, the circumstance bonus to the recall knowledge check is +2. You know what? This is kind of awesome because in my mind, basically your spellbook becomes your buckler.
That's exactly what I was thinking. But like, now I have to see how they mean by this, because in my brain, first of all, the image looks dope. A dude with his giant curved blade in one hand and this glowing book in the other, like some Skyrim like nightmare. Now, what it looks to me is like you throw the book out and it magically protects you with the words facing you, so you can read while it's keeping you safe, looking like a boss. Now, this is important to have correct or not, because that means you now have one hand free, if this is true. If it's not true and you're basically just using the book to parry blows while you're reading, that's also important because it means you don't have that hand free. Either way, this is freaking cool because it gives you more AC, and it's basically a better version of combat assessment.
Yeah. Honestly, I believe you have to be holding the book. It says you raise up the book you're holding, and the book remains raised until the start of your next turn, which means you are holding a book. Oh, and Sydney says, wait, just any book, though. Yeah, any book.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine it's your spell. Actually, hold on. Okay, it says when it comes to the circumstance bonus to AC and to recall knowledge on a subject relevant to the book that you have. So, for example, if you are reading up on monsters, and it just so happens you're being attacked by monsters, you can use the book to learn more about monsters as you're fighting said monster. It can be your spell book, but I think the type of book you're reading does kind of matter here.
Mm-hmm.
So really take that with a
This is for your librarian Magus.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I figured it out. So I was wondering, do you have to hold the book, or do you throw the book and it magically hovers, opening your hand? Raise a book, which is a really cute way of saying raise a shield.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have to hold the book, but now you're blocking the attacks with your book. Do you get the AC regardless of the knowledge bonuses based on the content? Good question, Maynard. It does say, while you have the book raised, you get a +1 circumstance bonus to AC. So yes, no matter what your recall knowledge roll is, it's a free +1 AC. Much like as if you had been equipped with a buckler. So now what's really cool, I think this is a really cool benefit to this. Raise a Tome gives you free information on a character, and it treats you as having a buckler equipped. When you don't, it's amazing.
I just had this image in my head when you said, like, hey, when you're using a book on monsters or something, what if your character has like a collection of National Geographics, but each National Geographic is based on a monster? So like, oh, it's a Manticore. Let me get out my Manticore National Geographic. Ah, it's a shield now.
I love that. Also, Waffles Maple Syrup. Awesome seeing you in the chat. Yeah, no, this
or pamphlets. Or pamphlets.
Pamphlets, yeah. You were like, hold on, I'm reading about like the tea tax. 1 second. Oh, this tea tax sounds terrible. Don't tea me, bro. But yeah, no, it's really, really freaking cool. And even though you cannot use a shield, this gives you a free shield with no bulk or cumbersome weight. It's amazing.
All right, let's move on to level 2 feats. Take it away, PJ, with Cantrip Expansion.
Oh, right. This is awesome. You can prepare 2 additional cantrips each day. And that's it. But think about that. You get 5 forever. Now, you get 7. You get 7 at-will spells that can be done whenever. That's insane. No other class, to my knowledge, gets 7 cantrips a day.
That's what, little bit less than half.
Mm-hmm. My God. Yeah, less than half of what you already have. So it's very simple, but it's very powerful, especially for a class that relies on their cantrips to really buff their damage, or, depending if you take the other one, keep them alive longer. All right. Why don't you read the next one?
Oh, next one is pretty simple. Level 2 feat is called Enhanced Familiar, and you have to have a familiar first. You infuse your familiar with additional magical energy. You can select your 4 familiar or master abilities each day instead of 2. So pretty much you're able to buff up that familiar.
Yeah, and this is awesome because Enhanced Familiar, the only other person I've seen that gets this at level 2 is the Druid. I may be wrong. I'm sure Sorcerers and Wizards do as well. But talking with Ian about Woodwork to the Edge of Legend, we were discussing if I was like level 2 feats. Enhanced Familiar is awesome, especially if you took Familiar beforehand and you really want to have a powerful Familiar by your side. It's very, very handy.
Yeah. Why don't you take the next one?
Sure. Spirit Sheath. You've magically constructed an extra-dimensional sheath for your weapon, typically accessed through a pocket, sleeve, or clothing seam. This sheath is hard to notice, granting a +2 circumstance bonus to stealth checks to conceal an item within it. A spirit sheath can hold only 1 weapon at a time, and that weapon's bulk must be 1 or less. So this probably won't work on your 2-handed weapon Magus. You can draw or return a weapon in a spirit sheath as an interact action, as can anyone else holding the object bearing the sheath. When you cast a spell affected by a striking spell, you can draw the weapon from your spirit sheath into your hand or hands as part of the cast a spell activity, storing your weapon spell within the weapon. So, basically, you create that kind of hammer space where you get to tuck your weapon away. And then as you pull the weapon out of hammer space, the spell is already stored into it. Your spell of choice is already stored into it on the draw. This is really kind of neat.
Yeah,
it's not
honestly,
powerful. It's fun.
I was going to say, if you take any level 2 feat, I would go with this one.
Yeah, I'm on the fence because I feel like if you want more options for raw power, cantrip is awesome. 2 more cantrips a day. Who doesn't want to be greedy on cantrips? But if you want to have something fun, something flavorful that can be really useful down the road, Spirit Sheath, absolutely. Does this apply to unarmed attacks? Can you draw an unarmed attack? Very good question, Maynard. That's like saying I cast Fist. So I think if you're using a brawling weapon, that's I think the good distinction. If you're using a brawling weapon, yes, this will work. If you're going unarmed for about the same damage approximately, then probably wouldn't be helpful. But yeah, talk about it with your GM. Maybe have some fun with that.
All right, now we're moving on to level 4 feats. And I'm going to take Bespell Strikes, which is a level 4 feat. It's a frequency of once per turn. Requirements: your most recent action was to cast a non-cantrip spell. You siphon spell energy into one weapon you're wielding. Until the end of the turn, the weapon deals an extra 1d6 damage of a type, depending on the school of the spell you cast. You can choose to put the spell energy into your body instead of a weapon, conferring the damage to your unarmed attacks. Abjuration, force damage. Conjuration or transmutation, same as the weapon. Divination, enchantment or illusion, mental damage. Evocation, a type of the spell dealt, or force damage if the spell doesn't deal damage. And necromancy, negative damage.
I love, by the way, Paizo. Thank you for making a fist magus or martial arts magus so much easier, and you're just putting it in the writing. I love you for that. Secondly, this ability, I already am in love with it. Imagine, because again, you only get 2 spells a day, right? Pretty powerful ones, but only 2 spells a day. So maybe you want to be kind of safe. You cast your 9th level Fireball Strike, and then you just kind of pull back some of that magical memory, and you put it back in your fist or sword, and then you get an extra bonus d6 damage of whatever. It's a fun way to keep in the fight. It's really cool.
All right, PJ, let's talk about Spell Parry. Take it away.
All right, Spell Parry. Oh, one last thing I want to say. The Bespell Strikes, the thing to pull the magic back, free action. Free action buff.
Yeah.
Anyway, Spell Parry. You're wielding only a single one-handed melee weapon and have your other hand or hands free.
Unarmed.
You can parry both physical and magical. I guess we're unarmed. Well, let's continue. You can parry both physical and magical assaults. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to AC and to saving throws against spells that target you until the start of your next turn, as long as you continue to meet the requirements. So now we're going back to that Jedi tank, y'all. You got that weapon, you got the hand free, and now someone's like shooting you with, I don't know, fire bolts or whatever low-level fire cantrip you got, and you just go, no, not today. And just smack away with your hand. A lot of fun. Also, let's see. Waffles, maple syrup. Awesome. Pre-show talk at 6:45, show at 7. Yeah, absolutely. Waffles, like, hype up your show here, and we'll join you and hype up our show there. Like, it's all about the love, man. We only grow when we all grow together. So Spell Parry sounds kind of neat. I kind of dig it. Steady spellcasting. Michael, take it away.
All right, steady spellcasting. It's a level 4 feat. Confident in your technique, you don't easily lose your concentration when you cast a spell. If a reaction would disrupt your spellcasting action, attempt a DC 15 flat check. If you succeed, your action isn't disrupted, which, yeah, it may not sound super exciting, but it's actually pretty darn useful for a spellcaster.
Yeah, especially when, like, you don't want to lose that spell. You maybe put it in your weapon and you got until the end of next round to use it. You don't want to lose it because someone smacked you on the nose.
Especially if it's like a level 9 spells.
Oh my, yeah, you do not want to waste a level 9 spell.
Yeah.
Dear God. Next one, Shrieker's Scroll. You attach a scroll to your weapon and blend its spell into an attack, carefully folding it around part of the weapon or pasting it into the weapon's surface. Attaching a scroll requires using the Affix a Talisman action, a 10-minute exploration activity with the Manipulate trait. You can only have one scroll affixed to a weapon at a time, and you can't have both the talisman and a scroll attached. You can cast the spell from the scroll after using Striking Spell to store the scroll's spell in the attached weapon. You can't cast a spell in any other way while it's affixed, though you can use affix a talisman again to remove the scroll and use it as normal if a bit crumpled scroll. So it's a little wordy, but if I'm reading this correctly, what this allows you to do is you spend 10 minutes basically bonding a spell from a scroll or a talisman to your weapon of choice. So if you're doing that fist magus, you're basically just like rubbing your hands on paper. And then when you do the cast a spell as part of the spell strike, you don't have to take up the two, I believe you don't have to take up the two actions for the normal cast a spell action. I think it's just one.
I kind of like this flavor-wise. I'm seeing kind of like in those kung fu movies or whatever, where you take a paper talisman, like a prayer talisman or something, and just like put it on your weapon.
Absolutely. I'm also a huge fan of Warhammer 40K, so I'm imagining like all the purity seals that like the Space Marines put all over themselves, and sometimes they'll wrap on their weapons. So I'm just imagining some like Magus Spice Marine running around with this like scroll purity on its weapon, going like, "For the Emperor, brother." You know, that's how my brain works. So it's fun. I don't know how great it is long term for the economy.
I think the stronger of the level 4 feats would be Bespell Strikes and Spell Parry, honestly.
Yeah, I really agree. I think those are great because Bespelled Strikes is a free action to get another 1d6 bonus damage buff to whatever you're going to be doing next.
Yeah. Striker Scroll is good, is pretty cool flavor and visually, though.
Yeah, so Reap Psyche asked, so hit spell, hit scroll, hit second spell in one round. So the second spell in one round is at 19th level. Going with that theory, I believe the way it works according to Striker Scroll is that if you spend the 10 minutes to put the scroll on the weapon, then when you do cast a spell, strike, normally it's 2 actions to cast a spell and then 1 to strike. Now it's just 1 action to cast the spell, 1 action to strike. You could, in theory, at 19th level, attack a second time, this time taking the penalty to hit, and attacking with a spell a second time. Yes, all in one turn. However, you have to preload the scroll onto the sword. So, and I think it only lasts once. It's really hard to read from the wording how many times this scroll lasts. Usually it's 1.
And anyway, moving on, let's go to the 6th level feats. Energized Strikes is a 1-action ability for feats level 6. Requirements: your most recent action was to cast a spell with the Acid, Cold, Electricity, Fire, or Sonic trait. You energize one weapon you're wielding with a spell for 1 minute. Your strikes with that weapon deals 1 additional damage per weapon damage dice. The damage type matches the spell's trait. If the spell has more than one of the eligible traits, you choose this type when you energize your strikes. You can instead put the spell energy into your body, conferring this additional damage to your unarmed attacks.
I love it. Again, I love that they're like, nah, be Goku, do that. This is really cool because this is a 1-action buff. Now, +1 damage per weapon die, not that exciting if you think about it, because at the gate, you're only going to have 1 weapon die. That's the weapon itself.
Yeah.
But as you get magical weapons, they increase your damage die by 1 damage die. Magic weapons in Pathfinder 2 2nd edition are way stronger than what they were in other games. So if you have a +3 Sword of Magical Hunani, I don't know, I got nothing, then that's basically the main die for the weapon, +3 bonus dice for the weapon, +3 to hit, and now with this ability, 3 more damage. That, by the way, stacks with your strength modifier and your weapon specialization modifier, and you can go back to 4th level and use Bespelled Strike as a free action and get a bonus 1d6. So
Not too bad.
Holy nuts. That is insane.
All right. This PJ, take away with Martial Caster.
I don't mind if I do. Martial Caster prerequisites. You have to have third level Magus spells. You've strengthened your spellcasting to power you in combat. You gain 2 first level spell slots, but you can prepare only certain spells like Fleet Step, Jump, Mage Armor, Magic Weapon, and True Strike. Additionally, add these spells to your spell book. When you cast 4th level magic spells, Magus spells, the extra slots increase to 2nd level, and you add the spells Resist Energy, Spider Climb, and Water Breathing. When you cast 5th level Magus spells, the extra slots now increase to 3rd, and you get Feet to Fins and Haste. When you cast 6th level Magus spells, the extra slots now increase to 4th level, and you can add Fly and Freedom of Movement. So remember how we said you have a limitation of spells a day. Well, not only do you have massive amounts of cantrips to make up for that, but now you also have this secondary list of spells that level up with you. I believe you still retain the knowledge of all of these spells, which is insane. But now your free extra little chunk of spells can go up to another chunk of 4th level magic, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right, next up is Spell Countermeasures. It's a level 6 feat. You have to have a focus pool to use it. You can protect yourself against magic. You learn the spell Countermeasures, battle spell. Increase the number of focus points in your focus pool by 1. It's always good to get a bigger focus pool.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Gotta love those focus spells. I'm stuck on what's the best feat for level 6. Energized Strikes, if you really want to put in a lot of melee strikes. Martial Caster, if you want to be really spell heavy. And Spell Countermeasures is also good, because who doesn't love focus spells?
It's a toss-up. It's a 3-way toss-up.
It really is. So it really comes down to your build. If you want to be more melee focused, obviously Energized Strikes. If you want to be like kind of similar to the Warlock in D&D 5e and have some like little free bonus spells you can tap into, Martial Caster, delicious. Mm-hmm. And Spell Countermeasures is great no matter what you're building.
All right, let's move on to level 8 feats. PJ, take it away with Capture Spell.
Capture Spell. It's a reaction. You have to have spell parry beforehand. Take a while, guess what you do. When you resist a spell, you capture the magic in your weapon. You store the spell in the parrying weapon as though you would use Spell Strike. This doesn't change any of the spell's effects based on the result of your saving throw, for instance. You'd still take half damage if you succeed on the basic save. You get, if someone hurts you with a spell and you try to spell parry, you can now use that as a free charge of your weapon as a reaction. So now you're going into combat next round with a fully charged spell.
You're a spell thief. You're a spell thief. You absorb the spell. Oh my god! As if you do if you make your Goku.
Oh my god! Yes.
Just like, I'm gonna absorb your power.
Yeah, or like how he learns by watching sometimes. Where like Master Roshi's like Kamehameha, and he's like, I'm gonna do that. Kamamama mama, and he's like, that's not how it's said. Oh, but you're 5. Okay. So yeah, this is crazy. You're a spell thief. You're an entire class feature for the cost of 1 feat. And like Maynard said, it's exactly like a feat chain. So your old feats are just getting more and more exciting as you're leveling up.
And it's a reaction, too. It doesn't
take
up any of your actions.
So the next time you go into combat, you already have a spell. You have the spell charged into your blade. Mm-hmm. So if you're fighting a high-level wizard, that wizard's going to hate you next round because you're like, thanks for sharing 9th level fireball. Now eat a 9th level fireball.
Yep.
Why don't you tell us about Standby Spell?
All right. Level 8 feat, Standby Spell. One spell is your favorite combat technique, and you practice it enough that you no longer need to prepare it to cast it. Choose a spell in your spellbook that you could use with Striking Spell, and that has a level no higher than the highest level Mega Spell slot you have. You can cast a spell without having it prepared ahead of time by expanding a spell slot of a sufficient level to cast a spell. You could change the spell when you add new spells to your spellbook, or by studying your spellbook for 1 hour per level of the newly chosen spell, which pretty much means, hey, I have a signature spell that I'm super good at.
Mm-hmm.
It's your
The
trade.
one draw side.
It's your
Mhm.
trademark. It's your trademark.
Yeah, it's like now in some editions recently they're doing this thing where like some spells you don't have to prepare; they're considered always prepared because of like
Hmm.
your domain or your school.
Hmm.
This is like that, so it's not a free spell by no means. It's just you don't have to worry about if you prepared it. Now, quite frankly, I think spell preparation is a nightmare. It does not give the player any flexibility in what they can do. However, you only get 2 spells a day. So what are you missing out on? You're
Yeah.
missing out on nothing. Just 2 fireballs and you're good. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? But this is great because, like, let's say you go, okay, I got 2 fireballs in case we fight a Night Dragon, but I'm really good at Shocking Grasp, which actually, no, okay, that's not a cantrip in this game. But I'm really good at Shocking Grasp. What's that? I'm fighting a Water Dragon, and they're resistant to fire? Crap. Well, I got the Shocking Grasp. Haha. You know, it adds what little flexibility you
Hmm.
can to a prepared spell system.
Yeah, you just have to prepare ahead of time, really.
Yeah. Maynard asks, by the way, is there anything else this class would be reliably wanting to use a reaction for? That's a good point. At this point in time, we haven't seen anything at this level that is a reaction based. So at level 8, when you get the ability, right now it's pretty much the only solid reaction you have, except for
Yeah.
maybe any other basic ability like that's all I can think of right now. So there you go.
Anyway, PJ, take it away
Mhm.
with Runic Impression.
All right, you have to have a focus pool already, which at this point you've already had 2 or 3 opportunities to build one. You can temporarily replicate the effects of a property rune for your weapon or unarmed attack. You learn the Runic Impression battle spell. And then when we're done with all the feats, the battle spells are right there. We'll tell you what those are. This is very similar. Oh, and it increases your focus pool by 1 more point.
Mhm.
This is interesting because in Pathfinder First Edition, Magus had a innate ability to automatically buff their weapon. They could give it the effect of a magical weapon property. And that was, I think, very early on, like between first and third level. So now you're getting this 5 levels later, and you're getting it in kind of a weird way. So it's nice because this was a key feature that the Magus got early on, but it feels weird that you're getting it so late in the game. That's just my thought.
Mm-hmm. All right. The next the next level 8 feat is called Spell Swipe, and it's a 2-action ability. You attack in an arc and can adapt your store spells to harm anyone you hit. Make a melee strike and compare the attack roll result to the AC of up to 2 foes. Each of whom must be within your melee reach and adjacent to each other. Roll damage only once and apply it to each creature you hit. A spell swipe counts as 2 attacks for your multiple attack penalty. If you had a spell stored on your weapon you attacked with, or in your body if you made an unarmed strike, discharging it affects all foes you hit, not just the first target. If you use a weapon with the sweep trait, its modifier applies to all your spell swipe attacks, including spell attack rolls.
So this is interesting because now I'm
Mhm.
thinking if you have like a whip, right, like a chain whip, like
Yeah.
Rufa has, you can basically do a spell strike against 2 people at once without as heavy a penalty as this ability normally grants. So that seems beneficial. It's an interesting choice to say the least. I don't know how I feel about it. It's not bad. It's not good. It's unique.
It's situational. It's
Yeah.
situational. All right, moving on to level 10. Do Cascading Ray.
Cascading Ray. Reaction trigger. You discharge a stored spell that deals acid, cold, electricity, fire, force, negative, positive, or sonic. So any flavor of magic. Except for chaos and lawful. Magical energy overflows from your striking spell, spilling out to extend beyond the creature you struck. This overflowing energy creates a ray targeting a creature within 60 feet of the creature you damaged. Make a spell attack roll against this new target, applying your multiple attack penalty normally. On a hit, the creature takes the same damage the spell deals as the one of the triggering types, which doubles on a crit. If the spell deals more than one eligible type of damage, choose one. The ray deals only that damage type. Unlike the spell discharged, your success with the cascading ray spell attack roll is improved by initial strike if it was a critical. The ray has the attack trait. The school and tradition.
Oh, I think we
Hit a guy way over there. There's a guy right here. We got you covered. Hit that dude and shoot that magic spell through his body to his friend.
Oh.
Yep, sorry I went off for a bit, but I'm back now.
All right, that's not bad at all. All right, moving on along, we got Comet Spell. It's a free action, I believe, level 10 feet. You have to have the Shooting Star Magus Synthesis. The trigger is you hit with a ranged strike and discharge a stored spell that you had cast from a spell slot. You create a trail of magical energy that flows from your target back to you. Each creature in a line between you and the target, not including you or the target, takes force damage equal to the spell's level. If the triggering spell was of the evocation school, increase the damage by half the spell's level and change the damage type to one type dealt by the spell. Your choice.
So you become Ash from League of Legends.
Pretty much.
Good God. That's really good if you are doing the Shooting Star Magus. And from everything I can see right now, this is why you'd want to take this ability. And honestly, they kind of had it a long time coming. Like everything else has been mostly melee combat. So I feel like this should be earlier in the build to make Shooting Star worth it.
Yeah, this is positioning. This is for those people who want to play characters who are really good at crowd control and position your opponents in certain manners to get their maximum attack potential.
Yeah, and if you're already shooting an evocation spell, which you're probably going to do, now the damage everyone in the line suffers from is 1.5 times better. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, like I said,
yeah.
I could definitely see if Chonobus takes the Magus and goes Shooting Star, this is something she would take.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Moving right along, Healer's Steel. It's a free action. You have to be a sustaining steel magus. You gain temporary hit points from casting a spell altered by these striking spells using a spell slot. So if you weren't here for that originally, one of the three builds of a magus you can have is a two-handed magus that when they store spells in their body for strikes or weapons that are two-handed, they can, instead of casting it, basically eat that spell and get temporary HP. So they're kind of helping themselves stay in the front line longer. So what this does, rather than just protecting you, the spells you channel into your weapon actually heal you. In addition to the temporary hit points you gain, you can either regain those hit points equal to twice the spell's level, or end any persistent negative damage you have. If the spell was of the necromancy school, you can both heal yourself and end negative damage. That's an amazing tank ability, especially for someone who doesn't have the HP there. My God. And it's a free action. It's a free heal and a free nope to whatever the GM has put upon you.
This is for those Magus barbarians.
Yeah, okay. So those who are watching on the chat, I want to see you build a level 20 Magus barbarian so I can cry at how awful that archetype combination is going to be. Not awful as in bad, awful as in game breaking. I'm gonna cry real tears on stream. Portal Slide, Michael Powell, take it away.
All right, this is another free action. It's a level 10 feat. You have to have the slide casting Magus Synthesis. You begin casting a spell altered by striking spell from a spell slot. You can rapidly make a portal to step through as you store a spell. Rather than sliding or stepping as part of your cast a spell activity, you teleport up to half your speed to a clear space you can see. This doesn't trigger reactions. If this would bring another creature with you, the spell is lost. If the spell you cast is of the Conjuration or Transmutation school, double the maximum distance you can teleport. Yeah, you basically become Nightcrawler from X-Men.
Yeah, you know how you're saying, Malice, that this is the Nightcrafter, good lord, the Nightcrawler Banff? Now, at level 10, it really is. And this is insane. For one solid reason. Sure, you may lose your spell to teleport you and a friend. But let's say that friend is your disgustingly overpowered barbarian. And they're like, I can't reach that guy over there. You can be like, don't worry, we're both going to reach that guy. And now you're both flanking this dude. Like that. You're now flanking him immediately. So if you have a rogue somewhere in the situation that can take advantage of that, boom. Next turn you go off, the barbarian can just go full Arga Blarga, lay into the guy, and it's nasty.
DJ,
yeah.
I don't think you can bring somebody with you. This is only you.
It says if this would bring another creature with you, the spell is lost. So what you're doing is you're sacrificing a spell to teleport you and someone else. So it's doable. You just lose whatever spell you put in the blade. So, which honestly could just be a cantrip. As long as it's Conjuration and Transmutation, you can double up. You can do your full speed of 30 feet for the sake of a cantrip, and it's a free action. That's insane. Quicken Spell Strike. Once per day, finally. Some limitations, this gorgeous, broken butcher. You can muster intense focus to rapidly store a spell. You use Striking Spell. If your next action is to cast a spell to store in your body or weapon, reduce the number of actions required to cast the spell by 1 to a minimum of 1. So remember how we mentioned before about the economy of this, that in order to store a spell into a weapon and strike with said weapon and then have the spell go after, that'll use all 3 of your actions around. Not anymore. Now, with this level 10 feat, once per day when you put a spell into your sword to strike, not only will it take 2 actions to store a spell and spell strike, you still have 1 more. And depending on the synthesis you've already chosen, you can move twice. You could heal yourself and move twice or move once. It's madness.
Yeah. All right. Now we're moving on to the level 12 spells. Level 12 feats. It's a Bespelled Perseverance. You have to have Bespell Strikes as a prerequisite. When you use Bespell Strikes, the weapon or unarmed attacks you also deal 1d6 persistent damage. The persistent damage is of the same type Bespell Strike deals, except in this case, physical damage. This causes a persistent bleed damage. Woo! That's pretty decent. Persistent bleed damage is really good in Pathfinder 2e.
Yeah, and it's just a free action to even get that going, so that's just free damage. Magic Sense. You have a literal 6th sense for ambient magic in your vicinity. You can sense the presence of magic auras as though you were always using a first level Detect Magic spell. This detect magic in your field of vision only. When you seek, you gain the benefits of a 3rd level Detect Magic spell on things you see, in addition to the normal benefits of seeking. You can turn this sense off and on with a free action at the start of the end of your turn. Getting spells for free, always awesome, and now you can see stuff all the time.
It's a magical version of Batman's detective mode.
Absolutely.
Yep. Next up is Overwhelming Spell Strike. Level 12 feat. You pierce through the spell's resistance, strike a foe. If your strike discharges a stored spell that deals damage, the spell ignores an amount of the target's resistance to acid, cold, electricity, fire, or sonic damage equal to your level. This also applies to all the damage the spell deals, including the persistent damage and damage caused by ongoing effects of the spell, such as the wall created by a wall of fire. A creature's immunities are unaffected.
That's really good, especially if you're fighting someone like... How many times have we been there in Pathfinder and other games where we try to cast Fireball at a demon or devil, and it's like, oh, sorry, it's resistant to fire. And you're like, well, we should have told me, because I have nothing but Fireball. You
Yeah.
jerk. Now you can not only still hurt them, but you can also make them take burn damage for being on fire. So it's a great little workaround for some of the mechanics of enemies and bosses.
All right, level 14 feats. I'm going to take it away with. Actually, you take it
School
away with Spell Shroud.
Go. All right, School Shroud, level
School
14
Shroud.
feet.
Yeah. Ugh.
It's okay. Frequency, once per turn. Your most recent action was to cast a non-cantrip spell, kind of like the other ones we mentioned, the buff one. Your spell has a powerful after effect, briefly granting you the effects of a certain spell, depending on the school of the spell that you cast. This after effect lasts until the end of your next turn instead of its usual duration. Using School Shroud again ends any existing spell benefit that you gained from School Shroud. So before, when you cast a non-cantrip spell, now you can kind of pull back the memory of that magic, or used to pull the memory of that magic back, get a bonus 1d6 and some other nasty damage. But now you're using this ability for defense. If you cast an abjuration spell, Stone Skin. Conjuration, you're blinking out of there. Divination, see invisibility. Enchantment, heroicism, great spell, look it up. Evocation, Fire Shield, great for counter defense. Necromancy, false life, ain't no dying in my time. Transmutation, Fleet Step. Illusion, you become invisible. Ends after a hostile action as normal. So you're just like, haha, and you can't see me. You're John Cena, and no one can see.
There you go. There you go. All right. Next one is Hasted Assault. You first have to have a focus pool. You can speed yourself up to move and attack more swiftly. You learn the Hasted Assault battle spell. Increase the number of focus points in your focus pool by 1.
Mm-hmm. And again, once we're done with the feats, they are written in the book, and we'll get to that in a minute. Preternatural Perry. Hey, Mr. Mahara. Great to see you in the chat.
Hey.
How's it going, buddy? Preternatural, I hate that word so much, Parry. You have to get Spell Parry. So, Maynard, this is an upgrade to Spell Parry from the other abilities. It's a reaction. You're targeted by a strike or spell attack roll, or you're about to roll a saving throw against a spell effect, and you can only be carrying the one-handed weapon. You snap your blade into place to ward off harm at the last second. You get a +2 circumstance bonus to AC and saving throws against a triggering effect until the start of your next turn. So whatever's happening, granted, you can only use a reaction once, but the bonus lasts until you get to go on the offensive, whereas most reactions only work against that one attack. This is a great reaction. The AC is a little low, but considering most buffs only go on a scale of 1 to 4, pretty solid.
Yeah, not bad. All right, now we're moving on to the level 16 feats. We got Dispelling Spell Strike. Requirements: you have a spell stored in your weapon or body from striking spell. Your stored spell tries to force out magic affecting a creature you hit. Make a strike against a creature. If this strike discharges the stored spell, you also attempt to counteract a single spell of your choice active on the target. The counteract level of Dispelling Spell Strike is equal to the level of the stored spell, and the counteract check modifier is the standard modifier for counteracting with a spell. Your intelligence modifier plus your spellcasting proficiency bonus plus any bonuses or penalties that specifically apply to counteract attacks.
So, do you want to attack someone and dispel magic at the same time? Because guess what? Now you will. They're like, I have a spell that makes me super strong. And you can be like, smack, no you don't. And that's exactly how that works.
There you go.
Effortless concentration, free action, trigger. I just love these words. Your turn begins. It just sounds so excellent. Trigger, your turn begins. You've trained your mind to maintain a spell with hardly a thought. You immediately gain the effects of the sustain a spell action, allowing you to extend the duration of one of your active Magus spells. Why is this so awesome? So, let's say you have cast, for put in terms of another tabletop RPG, a concentration spell, like, I don't know, a buff spell. Let's say a magic weapon buff spell. Normally, to sustain a spell, I believe that costs 1 action to maintain that spell out of your 3 action economies. Now, at level 16, you can maintain any spell ongoing that you've cast for free. For free.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
All right. Now we're going on to level 18 feats. Second Chance Strike. When your target proves resistance to your magic, you can recall the magic back into your weapon or body to strike again. Whenever you discharge a spell from Striking Spell, if the target takes no effect from a critical success on their save or a failed spell attack roll, immunity, or etc., the spell isn't discharged and you can continue to attempt to discharge it with a later strike. The spell must be discharged before the end of your next turn as normal for Striking Spell.
That is awesome. So basically, if you miss, you lose a spell, sorry. But if for some reason you're screwed, you can keep the spell stored and like you never use it at all. That is such an awesome saving mechanism for the core mechanic of the class. Moving along, versatile spell strike. You can channel. Wow, this sounds awesome. You can channel the entire realm of possibilities of your spellbook into an attack. Once during your daily preparations, you can use a spell slot to hold that infinite potential, rather than using it to prepare a spell. When you use Striking Spell to alter a spell, instead of casting a prepared spell, you can expend this spell slot to cast any spell from your spellbook that's at least 2 levels lower than the slot's level. The spell acts in all ways as a spell of 2 levels lower. You don't have any particular spell prepped in that slot until you cast it. So you only get 2 spells a day, right?
Yeah.
At 18th level, when this spell would come out, your magic is now 9th level magic. Say you're fighting something and your 9th level spells are not good for this. You have, I don't know, crazy buff spells or whatever, but you've got to deal damage. You can automatically, on the fly, cast any spell that you know 7th level or below.
So you're basically kind of acting like a sorcerer.
Very much. In fact, you can even forego any spell prepping, and then you can cast your any 2 spells a day, 7th level or below, kind of on the fly. It's a very cool way to get like just a drip of sorcerer into an already multi-classed main class.
Yeah. All right. Now we're moving on to level 20 feats, and we got Supreme Spell Strike. You made it almost effortless to attack. Okay, you made it almost effortless to cast striking spells. You're permanently quickened. Ooh. You can use your extra action only to strike with the unarmed attack or weapon storing spell from the striking spell. That's nice. That's really nice there. You're quickened. Yeah, you can only use your action to, strike with the unarmed attack or the weapon storing a spell from your striking spell, but that's a free action. Get a free action there. Especially really great if you have that sliding, what's it called? Yeah.
Oh, the slide cast. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, just you're permanently quickened, which I believe gives you more speed and less penalties on multi-attacks. You can use your extra action, gives you an extra action, to only strike with the unarmed attack or weapon, storing a spell. So basically, once you put a spell into your weapon, you just get free hits. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Next up, Whirlwind Spell. So this is going to be the question, which level 20 do you take? Because getting a free attack for just buffing your sword, nasty.
Yeah.
Whirlwind Spell. Now, this is a 3-action ability. This ability will take your entire turn. Let's see if it's worth it. You combine the might of a multi-target spell with a whirling flurry of attacks. You use Striking Spell, then cast a spell with a casting time of 1 or 2 actions, then make a melee strike against each enemy within your reach. Each attack counts towards your multiple attack penalty, but doesn't increase your penalty until you've made all your attacks. If you discharge the spell, you can affect each creature that you hit with a strike up to the spell's normal maximum targets. Okay, that's pretty gnarly. Now, granted, it's limited to your weapon range. Yeah, great for weapon reach Maguses. Magus Synthesis.
Pole
Absolutely,
arms.
Maynard.
Pole arms.
Polearm Maguses, Whip Magi, Exploding Spell Blender. Absolutely. Like, you just set the Magus to puree
I wonder if you could use this with
weapon rounds.
you could use this with what do you call it? The the ranged synthesis. I'm blanking on the name.
Oh, the Shooting Star?
Yeah.
Maybe. The problem, though, is that it's everyone. Let's see here if I'm reading this right. Each
Oh,
deck
it's in
counts
melee.
towards
Never mind. Melee.
Yeah, it has to be melee. Yeah, but still, though, the fact that like if you have a reach weapon or a weapon that's very very long, like a whip or a pole arm or whatever, you can affect 2 creatures in each direction of you. So that's assuming you're stacked, completely surrounded. 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is 16. You can attack. You can spell strike 16 people, as long as the spell would attack 16 people. Holy crap, that's amazing.
Oh,
okay.
I'm thinking, imagine like you're a giant or something, and you literally just take a tree and go, Whirlwind Spell on the tree. Whoosh.
I can see it now. It's like, hey, there's an army. Not anymore. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All right, so people in the chat, what do you think's better? Supreme Spell Strike, which gives you basically 1 extra attack against 1 target, while, of course, you're doing all your other fun stuff, or Whirlwind Spell, which allows you to do your Spell Strike once to up to 16 people, spell withstanding.
Personally, I would honestly go with Supreme Spell Strike over Whirlwind Spell, meaning for the fact that Whirlwind Spell is one of those abilities that's very situational, while Supreme Spell Strike, you're constantly using it.
I agree. I think Supreme Spell Strike, especially, I love to build characters that kill 1 person dead super good, right?
Yeah.
My grammar, not so much, but kill dead super good, number 1. Exactly, Maynard. More attacks are always a sucker for them because there's better chances of hitting someone. So I think I might go Supreme Spell Casting or Spell Strike, but Whirlwind Spell I will never look down upon. Yeah. Holy moly, that's insane.
But it's super situational.
Exactly. To get the full effect of it, you have to be surrounded by 16 dudes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a problem. Battle spells. Now, these are your focus spells as a Magus. I would kind of love to see there be a feat, dear Paizo. I think dear Paizo. A feat that lets you learn a focus spell from another arcane caster, like sorcerer or wizard, but I digress. So the very first one that we heard, like almost an hour ago, was Magus Potency that you get for free at first level. What does that do? I'm so glad you asked. It is a 1-action ability. It is a range of touch, you or 1 weapon you're wielding, duration for 1 minute, and 1 focus point. The target gains the benefit of a +1 weapon potency rune, granting a +1 item bonus to the attack roll of the targeted weapon or your good old punchy knuckles. If you target yourself. If cast on a weapon, this spell ends if you cease to hold it, and it can get heightened to up to +2 striking rune at 4th level. No, I lied. It can become a +3 greater striking rune at 7th level. As a 7th level Magus, you don't need magic weapons anymore. You are the magic weapon.
Yeah.
And it's at level 1 you get this. Okay, so earlier I said at level 10, that runic thing was kind of stupid. And I'm like, boo, I'm sad. This used to be so much earlier in Pathfinder 1. I take that back. Paizo, I am humbled. I am wrong, and you are right. This was amazing. I love this and I hate this. Thank you so much.
All right, next one is Spell Countermeasures, which is the trigger is you are targeted by a spell or in the area of a spell. You quickly create a magical protection for yourself tailored to a spell about to harm you. Against the triggering spell, you gain a +2 status bonus to AC and saving throws, and you gain a resistance of 5 against the spell's damage. Heighten +1, increase the resistance by 2. This is definitely, it buffs you up so good. It
Absolutely. The fact that this can be heightened by +2 resistance for every level that it's heightened. Remember, at level 20, your character can be this is heightened 10 levels. So at level 20, you activate this ability, you have a 25 resistance.
to like fire if you want.
Yeah. And it's a reaction. So if someone's like, fireball, you can be like, screw a quarter of that fireball. Haha.
And then use your other ability like, I'm going to siphon that fireball.
It's insane. Maynard asks, how many times can you activate it? Great question. You can activate it once per focus point that you have. Now, this is what makes focus spells so delicious, and focus powers. Focus points are kind of like what first edition had for like key points and Magus points and all these little points in these pools. They max out at 3. No one can have more than 3. You get a new one every time you take a feat, general, or class that gives you a focus point and a focus ability. So you get 1 to maximum 3 points to cast these spells. So you can technically do this up to 3 times. However, focus points come back after 10 minutes of doing whatever. So like, oh man, that fight was crazy. I had to burn all 3 of my focus points. Well, if anyone needs me, I'm going to be reading a book of dirty limericks, and in 10 minutes, I'll be all ready to go. That's all it is. You don't have to take a rest. You can just read something. Hell, you can just look at everything you're walking around for 10 minutes and get it all back. It's amazing.
Yeah. PJ, take it away with Runic Impression.
Runic Impression. This is that thing I mentioned earlier. I was like, oh, I'm disappointed, and I'm going to eat these words with a fork and knife. It's a 1-action, somatic. Touch the weapon you're wielding or yourself.
Touch yourself.
You know, hey, it's a medical procedure. Duration is 1 minute. Your unarmed attacks or your weapon gain the benefits of a weapon rune you choose when casting the spell. Corrosive, Flaming Frost, Ghost Touch, Returning, Shifting, Shock, or Thundering. So give yourself the elemental flavor you want. Yeah, okay, so Paizo, I already caught a typo. I think you're trying to say if this spell would give a weapon rune, but what you put was F this spell. You left out the I, so it looks like F this spell.
F it.
F it. F. Press F for spell. If this spell would give a weapon more property runes than its normal maximum, one of the existing property runes you choose is suppressed until the spell ends. For unarmed attacks, if the spell would give you more property runes than you would have from the hand rips of mighty blows, one of the existing property runes is similarly suppressed. One of the existing property runes you choose, if any, is suppressed until the spell ends. If cast on a weapon, this spell ends if you cease holding this weapon. At 7th level, so level 14, add Keen to the list of runes you can choose. So you can, as 2 actions, not only make your weapon a potential +3 greater striking rune, but you can also make it Keen and a bunch of elemental stuff. You could just go 2 actions, 2 focus points. I now have the sword of Grayskull. I have the power, and you're gonna hate me. It's amazing.
All right, and the last battle spell is Hasted Assault. It's duration of 1 minute, somatic. You call upon your magic to speed up your attacks. You gain the quicken condition and use the extra action each round only for strike actions. Pretty self-explanatory. Who doesn't love quickened?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And the fact that you can get that by the way, to last 1 minute. So most fights only last a minute unless you're a glutton for punishment and want to fight for more than 10 rounds. For 10 rounds, you just get extra actions on top of extra actions.
Yeah. The only thing is you have to use that extra action only for strike actions, but the fact that you're a Magus, that's pretty much what you're going to be doing anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the stupid amount of bonuses that you can throw on this guy, sure, you might still be taking your attack penalty with multi-attacks, but it's going to get to a point where the bonuses massively outweigh the penalties. So this class, I love it. It is insane. I would even argue that it has such a flexible offense, it's almost overpowered. There are some boring features, yes, but the feats are so delicious.
The feats are where it comes in. And honestly, I didn't really go through the feats. I just mainly went through the class features. If you just go through the class features, yeah, it's kind of vanilla. But the feats honestly make up for it.
Yeah, a big deal. So I'm going to make a quick note about my notes to Paizo. If you have any notes on this class to help the playtest and make Paizo, make the Magus a glorious, awesome, badass that it always should be and is, please go on our Facebook page, on our Twitter, at natural, do the Nat20 Productions thing, do at the table, leave a note about the Magus saying like, hey, I caught at the table. The Magus was dope. I think it'd be awesome if they got this feat and this thing, and we'll compile all of that, and I'll just throw it on the Paizo main page, or we'll just throw it somewhere out there.
As we said, the playtest is going on until October 16th.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of At the Table, where we did a deep dive on the Magus. If you loved it in Pathfinder First Edition, you got a whole bunch of new crazy stuff for Second Edition, and because this is the playtest, if you saw anything or heard anything that you liked or wanted to have changed, please go right ahead and leave us a message on our Facebook or at our Twitter, Nat20 Productions Official. Can't go wrong. Leave us a note, and we'll be more than happy to look that over and send it off to Paizo. Let's make this guy the BA that it always should be.
All right. Before we head out, let's give them our social medias. I'm Michael Powell, aka Mr. Kapow. You can find me all over the interwebs on my social medias, which are at Mr. Kapow. That's MRKAPAO, which is on Instagram, Twitch, and Twitter, or my Facebook page, which is kind of my hub. That's facebook.com/Michael Powell does stuff, because, well, I do a lot of stuff. And, I just launched my new YouTube channel, which is Fantastic Tales of Adventure. And that's going to be where I put up a lot of my TTRPG stuff, which includes right now Reddit reads, which is really fun for D&D stories and such. And on Thursdays, I will be hosting on Toyzilla Network, Toyzilla Live, which is a toy news and nostalgia show with my co-host, David. So anyway, where can we find you, PJ?
Good question. You can find me everywhere at pj.mcgaw. And when I'm not here at the table, I am also doing the flagship Pathfinder 2nd Edition homebrew show on Nat20 called Edge of Legend. It shows every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll see what crazy shenanigans these unlikely heroes get into when all of the orcs and goblins of the world, sans a few tribes, come together and declare world war. Will they survive? Will they die? Of course, we'll only find out by watching. And aside from Wednesday nights, on Friday nights, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you can find me at the Twitch channel Life Action Roleplay, where I'll be bringing back my old character from Arcana High, Kilrin Camblade, as we start Season 2, as we go to college. What shenanigans will arise? Will I play Heather Delilah? I will probably do my best version of that possible. Who knows? Tune in Fridays at 7 p.m. to see Secret Arcana High Season 2. We go to college. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to the next time at the table.
Bye, guys.
Bye.